whether it came from a lab, whether it was deliberately released or not, one thing that we do know is that they knew they had an outbreak, and China blocked internal flights from Wuhan and allowed international flights from Wuhan. So they knew that they had something that they didn't want to have spread within China, but it was perfectly fine for them to spread to the rest of the world. And that is consistent with the comprehensive national power approach to looking at international relations, because you can improve your country's comprehensive national power relative to others in two ways. One is you get better, and that's what most countries try to do, is they try to improve themselves. The other is you can knock everybody else down, and then comparatively, you've done better. So if you have a pandemic, if you're China and you have a pandemic, and you just can try to contain it, you know that's going to knock you down. But if you spread it, and at the same time, as they seem to have been doing, you're buying up PPE and you're not saying that there's human-to-human transmission, all that sort of stuff, you're knocking everybody else down. And one of the few global economies to grow during the past 2 years was the Chinese economy. And I think that they overestimated how much they would benefit from it, because immediately after, within the sort of few months after that, that was when you saw them pushing into Galwan, for example, and making some incursions in the South China Sea. And then they tried to, when Australia quite courageously said that they wanted to do an investigation into the origins of COVID, they put in place a whole bunch of economic sanctions against Australia to try to knock it down. So there was an attempt to mute information about the nature of COVID, partially, I suspect, because they wanted to create confusion in the response. Second, they wanted to create confusion about the origin of it. And there was, as we now know, there seemed to have been, elements within other countries that were fine to facilitate those two elements of the narrative for their own reasons. I would just say that I think that one thing that has come out of this is that there has been much more appreciation for Indian media, which has been trying to cover this as transparently as possible from very early on. So I think, and many people were in the West were stuck inside and only had access to, to the internet, and were introduced to Indian media over the past 2 years, including through coverage on some of these issues and on alternative responses to dealing with COVID, as we saw, for example, with what happened with UP and some of the sort of treatment kits and things like that. So at the same time that some of this social contract stress or fracturing was happening in the West, there was also an increased awareness of what was going on in India by a lot of people who may not have had the time or the awareness to start to follow the Indian media. And we're seeing that now also with the Ukraine crisis. We're seeing a lot more people getting their news out of the Indian media. And I mean, I can tell you on the trucker stuff, I was getting a lot of clips sent to me by Americans of Indians who are covering the trucker the convoy. So there is this sort of detrimental international media effect of the Chinese role in distorting some of this stuff. But I think that at the same time, there's also been a positive effect of more awareness of some of the Indian media coverage, which I don't think possibly would have happened otherwise.
Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.